have Dominik Endler, who's one of our partners in Commercial Excellence Partners, and we have Patrick joining us, who is also an expert in pricing. Patrick and Dominik will give a little bit more of an intro themselves. Yeah, so I'm a partner within Commercial Excellence Partners. My expertise is around strategy, strategic marketing, and innovation. So pricing does fall under, at least I believe, under the marketing bucket, but there's going to be discussions if it's under finance or under sales, who's involved. But I always love that with this topic. So that's a little bit about my expertise. I'm based out of Dubai, doing most of my work in the GCC, in Europe, mostly with German, Swiss manufacturing industrial companies, and a little bit of work in Singapore. So that's a little bit of an intro to me.
Thanks, AJ. Hello, everybody. Pleasure to be here together with all of you. So my name is Dominik Endler. I used to be responsible for commercial excellence of a large B2B manufacturing company from Europe. I did this for 5 years. We focused very much on price management in this endeavor. That's also how I met Patrick, who consulted us at that time from Boston Consulting Group. And since beginning of the year, I'm now an independent advisor and focused a lot on price management and developed them together with Patrick out of our experience working for my former company, something special which we would like to introduce to you today.
Yeah, perfect. And thanks, Dominik, for bridging how we met each other. Patrick Raab from the Düsseldorf office. I've worked with the Boston Consulting Group, Carney, Simon Kucher, some of the big consulting companies for management consulting, but especially also in pricing for more than 10 years of my life. Spent also a little bit of time in the industry in Syngenta and in Vorwerk in the pricing department, so I kind of know both worlds. And yeah, since a few months now, also an independent consultant with the focus on really pricing, commercial excellence, and also revenue growth. So that's been kind of my destiny since university, working on the top line end of things. Very happy with that, and especially also very happy working with smaller clients. So bringing clients really some practical advice and some very good executable concepts. Bring those to life very quickly. One of that, as Dominik mentioned, is what we call profit upside mapping, and very happy to present that to you today.
All right, fantastic. Well, we have both gentlemen, very good experts on the pricing topic. Very, very quick intro, folks. Just bear with me for 2 minutes. A quick intro to Commercial Excellence Partners and what we do. So we're a group of about 10 independent experts that are all seasoned practitioners ourselves. More than half of us are also adjunct faculties and in the academic space. So we bridge the world between executive education and advisory, but we're all quite senior. We are all quite accomplished in our careers, and we now contribute to our clients in the public sector, the private sector, around commercial excellence. So that's a little bit about us. Commercial excellence it's really about obviously commercialization. How do we build the right muscles in an organization and optimize that machine, if you will, to be excellent in terms of generating financial returns for the organization and fundamentally creating value for customers. That's the heart of everything that we do. We believe organizations exist to create value for customers. So we need to align all of the different pillars, such as strategy, marketing, sales, innovation, digital, customer focus, and people. And all of these different areas need to come together cohesively to ensure that we are doing an effective job of creating customer value. What is commercial excellence? It's really optimizing leadership and culture, sales and marketing. It's looking at innovation. How do we leverage digital to create value for not only ourselves, but also customers? And it really comes together through a great customer experience and great products. And so if this comes together quite nicely, we can be ensuring that we create a delivered value that customers are willing to pay for. And that willing to pay for will be coming up, I think, today a lot. And if we do this well, we should create value for customers and also ourselves. Yeah, these are some of the clients that we've worked with on the top left. The bottom left are some of our education partners. And on the right are just some examples of some programs that we run, advisory or executive education programs for clients. The last session that we have, just very quickly, was on harnessing digital transformation. So if you did not join that one, the very quick recap for that is that we have a video that's available if you'd like to watch that. In short, I think two very quick slides here to give you a feel. We looked at the digital maturity. We asked people joining us, at what stage do you believe that you're at? And trying to have some foresight of what muscles that organization would need to build to go into the more advanced stages. And the golden nuggets at the end of that conversation, which was held by Rob, was that first, what we need to do is when it comes to digital transformation, we should be thinking about customers first. That is really first and foremost. Then we can prioritize data-driven decision-making and analytics to get and share good insights. And then finally, it's about investing in your team's skills. And as we do that, we need to experiment, learn, and adapt. We don't want to create 1 year, 2 year digital transformation programs and execute blindly. We need to be flexible and adapt as we learn what works for us and what doesn't work for us. Right, now, jumping into the topic of today, it's practical price management. Map your profit upside. And for this...
Thanks, AJ, for the introduction. Indeed, today we want to talk about how to map that upside. And this is part of a very practical price management approach, which we would like to share with you today. So what is profit upside mapping? What are we going to explain today? First of all, going back a little bit, why and how better price management can boost your profits. I think it's very well known that perhaps price management or pricing is the easiest way to improve your profits, short-term and mid-term, but we would like to go a little bit into the basics on this. But then the main focus is to ask the question and to answer the question how to find profit upside opportunities. And then the next step is, okay, if we have now this profit upside opportunities, if it is clear to us what to do, how do we bring those into reality? How do we make actions out of that? How do we tackle those? So we would like to get a little bit of a flavor opinion from your side, from your experience. What is the biggest profit lever? If you talk about profit upside mapping, we want to improve the profit, though what is from your experience? You know most probably already what we think the strongest, biggest profit lever. So please take a picture of your screen, go into Mentimeter and share your opinion with us.
That's a surprising view. In general, I would say not so much in when it comes to, of course, my field, pricing. Yes, volume is also quite an interesting lever. But if we look at what a company usually thinks about and what they can do about their profits, not a surprise to see, and thanks for voting in that direction, that pricing really is the biggest profit lever. Right? There's, of course, also a mathematical explanation to why this is so important. And it's not only out of our heads. So there's been research done looking at typical P&Ls of companies in very many different industries. And if we then mathematically apply the potential of various levers you can pull in order to get more profitable, not surprisingly, pricing really is the biggest one. And within each lever, of course, it assumes everything else will stay constant. So that's a fair assumption in many industries. And yeah, with that, you're, I think, in the right crowd here if you also believe that pricing is such a big lever. However, even if we know, and it's been proven now for so many years that pricing is so important, what is it which management usually has the most information, what they are most comfortable comfortable about, it's unfortunately not price. It's really about what is my fixed cost level, what is my margins. This is all you often hear, and all you often hear when you talk about or hear about price increases. It's always about, yes, it's the cost going up. Fine. On the other end, many companies don't have any or very limited transparency on what's going on with price. And that's really a challenge which we want to address with our specific approach, since we are convinced that pricing really is undermanaged and deserves more attention in the company. What's behind pricing? So what's the logic we think is about pricing? I think there's two components. It's the value you create as a company, and then the value you're able to extract as a company. So whenever you're providing a significantly higher value for a certain customer, you deserve a higher price, and that's essentially the art and science and pricing to be able to get that value, what you deliver. Sounds very easy to get what you need, and also if you look at from a theoretical point of view, what's behind your profits. Price is also the easiest part to fix, right? It's not only does it have the biggest impact, but if you look at what are the elements in the profit equation, yes, pricing, most people think I just may not even need a public notification. I can just change the last digit. I can move some figures around. That's often extremely easy, even though some of the systems you may use, such as SAP or so, are not so easy. But in general, it's much easier to print a new price list than to come up with an innovation. So it really is a good example of what you can quickly change in your P&L, but it's also a factor which you have to critically manage, because there's so many examples out there of pricing fails. That's why we are saying, yes, pricing is super important, but please manage it carefully and holistically. Look at pricing and price management from three areas. There's the strategic area where you look at where do I have the right to play, how do I want to win, how do I position my company versus competition with innovations, for example. What's my revenue model? Am I just selling things? Am I working with subscription, for example? That's really the strategic level you'll have to clarify first. Then it's about getting the value you create and really the highest price possible. That's the core of it in the execution area, where you look at what's a good list price, for example, to start with. Who do I give discounts? How do I differentiate the prices based on the value I deliver in certain customer segments and in certain industries, for example? And it's also about, at the end, if you negotiate, how successful are you? That's the core part, so to say, where the rubber hits the road. But you also need the right tools to support all these elements in price management. Not surprisingly, it's about organization and people. It's about processes, how you make decisions, how you essentially have the right data and analytics to support these, and how to put in a perfect legal framework, for example, with your contracts to manage price fluctuations over time. That's in a nutshell how you best manage pricing. And I've mentioned, yes, execution is really the core part, and this is why we're here with you today, because execution is then also the part where you really fix the number or can quickly do that. It's about tactics. It's about more of a short-term focus, but setting a right basis also for strategic development. It has a link in changing things, how to do that, how to tweak processes, how to make people more productive. And of course, it shouldn't be, and this is what we will also show you, decoupled from kind of your overall strategic view, because also some of these tactics can really deteriorate your company value. We've seen that happening, not because we recommended it, but we had to deal with it at some clients. And believe me, that's nothing you would like to destroy very easily. So with that, let's have a look at how to essentially map your profit upside and turn these insights into really pragmatic actions.
We are showing here two extremes, and there's something in between in general, but nevertheless, we recognize that you have normally those two poles about how to approach pricing or price management in companies. Especially in B2B companies, you still have a lot of companies working the old way, and we call it here the gut feeling pricing. So there is no specific price management in place, there is no strategic pricing direction. Sales is owning it, but also left alone with the price setting, getting also blamed for it if it's not going in the right direction. The decisions are not data driven enough because often data are just not available. And also, and this is important, pricing is not just for sales or for commercial, it goes much broader. And in a lot of cases, the stakeholders which are involved here are a little bit left on the side. That means the consequence, there is a potential for price management improvements which is untapped. So that's the reality in a lot of companies, and as more you go also to smaller companies, as more you see it. The other extreme we would like to show you is the boiling the ocean price management. And I think, Patrick, when you just went through this one slide where you showed all the different aspects of pricing excellence, it became obvious how many different areas you have to address and how complicated it is. And what we see is a lot of larger companies, it's coming from the top, often from the CEO, something has to happen on pricing, and then consultants come in and a big transformation is getting started, but it's in a lot of cases top down. It's connected with specific targets the top leadership wants to achieve. Sales is not systematically involved, which is a big problem, because if they are not having the buy-in from the beginning, the success will miss. And that's what a lot of those big transformations, those boiling the oceans activities are lacking, is that at the end, it really translates into the results, even if millions of dollars or euros have been invested. A lack of customer granularity is missing, but also a lack differentiation by business unit and regions, because you have to do it, let's say, somehow focused. Otherwise, you are going broad, and then you risk exactly what Patrick explained, that you're destroying your base. So we have, based on this insights, we have developed something which is somehow sitting in between. What we want to show you now, we call it profit upside mapping. What is now different, or what is now special about it? First of all, it's laser focused. So it's a sniper instead of a shotgun effect. What we see often, as I just said, there is the need for profit improvements, and then everybody has to bring so many percentages, no matter where, and no matter what the consequences would be. We see this a lot in private equity companies are walking in, taking an organization over, and they immediately want to increase the price level in order to have a better cash flow, which works short term, but it can be very, very dangerous midterm and can frustrate the internal team very much, but then also, of course, the customers. So ours is also on a customer segment level. We will explain this to you. It's not a black box. It's very practical. It's an evaluation process and a model which is very straightforward. And also very important, it's hands-on. So it's collaborative. Commercial team is there from the beginning, and it's really a group exercise. And because of that, you have the buy-in. And it's also very action-oriented. You're not just talking about concepts and principles and what everybody do. You're putting specific actions behind it, and you can measure those actions. So profit upside mapping is not working everywhere. It works very well for B2B, but also for B2C. But typically, B2B is the area we want to focus on. It works where you, because as I said, we go on a customer level. It works where you have a limited number of customers, which are driving a big part of the profit. If you have this big, unlimited number of customers, then it's hard. As long, and that's the second part, as long as you are able to to segment those and put this into buckets and groups and handle those groups, then those segments then similar from the buying behavior and the price management point of view.
Great. Listen, Dominic, just on that point, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to just get some feedback from the participants joining us, just to find out if you're in a B2B type sector or B2C. It would be nice to just get a feel for the room and what type of, market setup do you have in your industry. So Kasim, Desmond, Patrick, Rawaf, Luana, you could just let us know. We'd love to hear what kind of, just put it in the chat. Yeah, a lot of B2B. Okay, I'm sure they'll answer it in a moment or two. So I just want to get a feel for the room to see. So overwhelmingly B2B so far. Great.
So that makes sense.
Very good.
And many ways are to move on here. Yeah, profit upside mapping is a 3-step approach. And we are starting with a profit upside heat map, and you will see in a minute what it is. Then we say, if we have this heat map, we can immediately go and get actions out of it and improve our profit situation. But that's not enough. We also can use the profit upside mapping in order to understand where we are today with our profit position and where we should go, where we are today with our price position, where we should go. And that's then the more mid to long-term view. We have deep dives for all of those. And we start now with deep dive 1. And Patrick, you take it from here.
Yes, and I think from also the experience we both share, Dominik and I, from our corporate world, I think it's important to reiterate, even though if some of these steps may look simple, that's intentionally, and we said it's not supporting, or it's not a substitute of some groundwork you may have to do later on at some point if you really need to refresh your discounts condition system, whatever is out there, work on cost to serve, or any other initiative. No, it's really a very important first step to set the right priorities and also benefit from some short-term actions which just come out of this very, very focused thinking, instead of just starting something to begin with. So that first step here is essentially focusing on what are the right focus areas, and then where am I good and where could I be better. So this is an example from a Swedish producer of steel, and essentially it goes into rain gutters and downpipes and flat steel, which you can use on the roof and on the wall. And I think the first step, if we look at what they sell and who they sell it to, is really become some clarity on where you stand. What are the just on very basic KPIs, what is the performance of these particular product customer clusters, and where does it make sense to be granular, and where is it okay to sum things up and look at a broader scheme of things, and where you may not even have an opportunity to find a short-term or a strategic upside because you're locked into a contract, or you're already super well performing. And that's essentially the first step, to really look at what are the focus areas, what's the right level of differentiation, and then have a good view on these areas. For example, if we look at the rain gutters and downpipes, it's really important to be more customer or segment specific, to look in your customer segment specifically, certain craftsmen, distribution, DIY markets. Those work specifically different, and so the opportunities are also different. While in the other area, in flat steel, it's only distribution business, not much differentiation from the customer side. So it's really more about the product. That's the first decision you have to take, where you want to focus on, what is the right level, too small, locked in, or even then under consideration. Then comes the question, how do I rate these particular segments. Where do I have this profit upside? And we do that through three lenses, essentially. The first lens is about the market and segment attractiveness. Are we working in an environment which is growing? Is there a positive trend in demand? And secondly, of course, what about our competitors? Are we only there, or is it a very intense situation? Thirdly, it's then about the pricing power from the customer side. So how am I perceived in a way, innovation of products, of services, and also how sensitive are customers about price increases. All these together can be broken down in a whole bunch of 5 to 10 criteria we would use to evaluate your business. And these criteria need some weighting, because in some industries, market is more important than competition, for example. So that's the first exercise you need to do, assign the weightings. And then essentially in workshop with the responsible business owners, and that includes marketing, sales, product management, and the leadership, really look at what is my pricing power. For example, in this DIY top one, that's really a large DIY chain. And from looking at the market and also the competitive dynamics, that's a tough call to work with this customer. So from that angle, my pricing power may be limited. But I'm very good compared to some competitors, and also what the customer perception is in the sense of service that I provide. So I can give a very high rating because, for example, I have a very good sales force, which is there, which will stock up proactively the shelves in the particular stores, the DIY outlets. So that's definitely a very, very positive sense. So if you do that for each of these segments and come to a kind of a group rating, this is what would come out in the sense of a heat map. And it's, yes, a tangible output. So you easily see where do I have some pricing power and where not, and what would be the go-to area to develop actions. It also, of course, has a socializing ownership aspect, because all these ratings come from a general and common workshop. So people afterwards will feel much more ownership and connection to all these results, and will be able to then take the next steps together.
And this is always my point I like to make, coming out of the commercial world, having seen and guided a lot of commercial teams in all kind of business units and industries and regions. Typically, you run into a situation that the sales reps do not systematically collect all information. Of course, with CRM, it's getting better, but reality, it's not happening automatically if you don't really have a system behind it. There's often the belief that all relevant information are there. They know the market forever, and they know everything to make the right price decisions. Reality, there's more to get. And now just going through a process, as Patrick described it, have all this information together on one sheet, have the people in the room and discuss where the pricing power is sitting, creates an enormous dynamic. And even if you at the end come to limited pricing power pockets, which we are not expecting, because normally we realize there's a lot to get if you just go through it, but just getting this information, having this different view on your customers, on your market, that already, and your competitors, brings you a big step forward. So it's a nothing to lose exercise. Yeah, so from the profit upside heat mapping, what are we going to do now? We have now a feeling, or perhaps more a feeling, where we have pricing power. But now you have to translate this into something which is tangible, which are actions. And we call it the go and get phase. That's still short term because it's based on the existing pricing power situation. And that's a very simple thing. I mean, you all have seen this 100 times. It's an action list. And you're starting with collecting then for these areas which are green, potential actions. But what is very important, and we haven't worked it out here in the presentation, it would take too long, but it's also simple at the end that you simulate what is the profit impact. If you say, yes, if I'm doing a price increase with this customer by so much percent or by this euro or dollar amount, what is the risk on volume loss? So you always should look from this point of view, because it's a profit impact. It's not a price increase impact only. And profit is always the dimension of price and volume. So you simulate that and you take this into your consideration if you say, this is an action we want to take or not. So that's 1 and 2. Then the old classic way, people have been part of these workshops, and now you take them and say, hey, who's doing what? You are sharing then the responsibility with each of those members, and you put a due date behind it, as we all know from typical action list. What is now also very different and not happening, it should, but reality is that you have to have a regular follow-up on what's now the reality. People are walking into the field, moving into the field, start negotiations with the customers, and make the experience, and then they come back. But they should not just come back to by themselves. They should bring this to somewhere. And Patrick, you are now introducing the concept of the situation room.
Yeah, that somewhere has a unique place. And before some recent conflicts, we used to call these war rooms. Now we're calling these situation rooms. At the end, it's an environment, and you can imagine it's a regular meeting with all those relevant stakeholders, ideally involved in bringing these actions forward. So again, very targeted. It doesn't have to be everybody for everything. So to stick with my example, there may be really a situation room for the DIY segment, or you have a situation room for the flat steel, for the roof and for the walls. So be super conscious of everybody's time. Don't have a large 2-hour meeting and then all these different topics which bore 90%. No, really have small, very good, productive sessions. And then it's about not only going through the list of actions. Yes, that's of course as well. But there's a lot of value in having a systematic exchange of experiences. For example, it's people across the globe working with DIY segments. So why wouldn't you in Sweden ideally also learn from the US or gather some arguments which your colleague in China has used? So that is very valuable. At the end, it's also a forum where you can test and learn, where you can, for example, use more and other data, which Dominik has mentioned, in a systematic way to support decisions, and then build other tools afterwards. So really, it's about these regular touch points, potentially even have follow-ups. If you talk about a deal or a decision which is above everybody's pay grade, then you may involve your boss. It supports that regular exchange and really systematic decision making.
Just to ask a question here, just in terms of implementing this, would this be done on a market level, on a product group? On what level would we set up these situation rooms in an organization?
Yeah, good point. And I think there is not the consulting answer. It depends, right? It would need to be at the end comparable decisions, which would be covered, or comparative areas. So it makes sense definitely to, for example, talk about similar products or similar customer challenges. So it could be both. And that, of course, is driven by your industry. If you sell super different stuff, like Dominik's former company, selling steel in very different variations to very different end industries, then that is, of course, the logical differentiation. Plus, of course, it could also be, if your business is different by region, that could also be a simple division. But again, same with the being laser focused and selecting your focus areas. That's a conscious decision to make. what is the right cut.
What I would like to add is the last bullet point here, agile adoptions, and that's sometimes missing. And what it means is that you also really collect the feedback. Is it working? Is it not working? Perhaps it was a good idea to make a price increase with this or that customer, but it turned out to be a very, very strong pushback, and you really feel there is a big risk if you do go further. This would go back into the situation room, and you would discuss it, and you might make the decision to cancel this action and not do it and try something else. And what I also like very much is this sharing, because every sales guy more or less works for himself, right? And always has the same reasons why it's not working. But if there are success stories and you share those success stories in the commercial team, it really motivates people to try also different things which worked for the colleague in another area. So I would like now to move on here with our third deep dive, and this is the mid to long term. And I really believe this is another part of this concept which makes it very, very strong. Because it's a different view of pricing. And what we mean here is that we say, yeah, we have a upside heat map and we take actions based on that, but that's just the today's view. How can we work now from the pricing power point of view on an improvement? How can we change it and put actions, strategic initiatives behind it? So it's a very simple thing. You say, here is again our heat map as it is today. And then you ask yourself, what would be our target heat map? Where do we believe we should do something in order to improve our pricing power? And that's not going from one day to the other for sure, but you start working on this. So we call it strategic initiatives, which you would launch in order to reach the target heat map. I would ask you to go back to the Mentimeter and answer the question, which strategic initiatives could you envision to reach the target heat map? Just put words in what you would do if you say, well, I have a pricing power situation today, but what could I do in order to improve this pricing, to increase the pricing power? Continue. So what do we have here? So alignment meetings with sales and marketing and distributors. And then the distribution part plays an important role here, of course. Then value pricing, it's always a big term. And at the end, what we are doing here is going very much now into value pricing, because you ask yourself, what can I do to not have, I mean, of course, to have a better pricing power, but you only get pricing power if you're increasing the value for the customer. Ensuring sales team have KPIs on profitability and not just volume. Absolutely right. Better market survey of customers to a certain perception of value received. Absolutely right. That's going back to this value pricing. And the other one is here, need to talk to salespeople to hear customer opinion on prices they're willing to buy at. We try to cluster those opportunity areas into 6 different groups. We call them also archetypes. One is about products, improving the product quality, for example, service, adding service aspects to it, supply chain, being more an on-time delivery, just in time, things like that. Then the pricing as an area in the more narrow sense, enablement specifically for the commercial team to bring this to the customers, and overall looking at the go-to-market strategy. So these are 6 clusters. And they are still very generic of course, if you want to define our specific initiatives, they need to be more specific. And that's just here now an example, and we don't want to spend too much time here on it. But you see on the left side, again, those 6 categories or archetypes. And then on the right side, you see now various initiatives you could take. And they're coming at the end from our example, from the roof example Patrick introduced, and the things which are coming back are things which you see here coming back from what you said, like value-based pricing, for example. But then also branding could be part of it. The service monetization could be part in it. Introducing digital connection points. But these are just examples. Of course, it depends on the industry where you are. But the idea now to say, okay, we understand now what kind of actions or initiatives could we take in order to improve our pricing power situation. Also here to be focused, and we always come back to this, we want to be focused, we want to not do everything. We can cluster those initiatives, potential initiatives, into high impact and ease of implementation, low and then start really with the areas which have the highest potential and are the easiest to implement, and not go everywhere, go for everything, because all these things are investment, they take time, but take the ones which will create then the most output for the organization. Well, and with this, we are coming to the end. That's all what we wanted to tell you about the third piece, the third deep dive on the more strategic aspects. And with this, I hand over to Patrick, who summarized a little bit what we have shown you so far.
Yeah, let me wrap this up pretty quickly. So from the very beginning, we looked at the different levers, and yes, pricing is a key lever, and even in tough environments, it's important to pull it, and that may even be a success if you keep your prices stable instead of everybody lowering them. So yes, you can and you should always work on pricing, since it's very promising. Then secondly, it's from our perspective really about not boiling the ocean, but being very pragmatic and being really practical, bringing people together and using that workshop-based format that has been proven very good from our view. With that, it's about to define a good starting position, realistically find the right level, what you can address essentially, and then look where you have these opportunities of profit upside, essentially where you can take short-term actions, and also where you at the end work more on the strategic initiatives, the bigger bets out there, which of course also take significant more time and investment. That's in a nutshell really the approach we're looking for. If you of course think in the sense of a project of a timeline, we of course do. We are consultants. We have prepared like a very rough overview of a project timeline, mapping kind of our phases with specific workshops. Essentially, you can do that in 5 to 6 weeks. Really be focused. Really look at which game are you playing? What are the focus areas? What is my current heat map? What are the short-term actions to fund a longer-term journey? And then what are the strategic initiatives you will need to take? That's in a nutshell an overview of those 4 workshops we would suggest in about 4 to 6 weeks. And lastly, I would like to leave you with a very famous quote. We're not the only ones really focusing on pricing power. There's some professional investors out there, and quoting here Warren Buffett, he says, the single most important decision in evaluating a business is its pricing power. And of course, he thinks of that in a sense of the ability of the management thinking like this, but also the execution working like this, and the platform enabling this, how best price management can be anchored in the organization and will boost profits over time. So with that, from our side, Patrick and Dominik, thanks for listening, and of course giving you now an opportunity to also ask if there's any unclarities, any points you'd like to stress. Happy to go in the Q&A session.
A lot of questions. I guess one of the things that come to mind for me is also maturity, like the product life cycle. We know that pricing can really change along the product life cycle, and so how is that dimension taken into consideration in the power mapping? Is it just adapting the weightage, or is it changing criteria? How do you see that aspect playing a role?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's AJ, again, really depends on are you talking about an organization which is very much product oriented, so which can be grouped into almost single product units, so to say. For example, a car manufacturer, they usually have their sub business units. At least I know that from my stints. They are grouped by models, and there it's very easy to then say, okay, this is the old A4, the new one, the new Audi will be launched next year. So yes, in that segment, our answer must be different than in the, let's say, A6 or electric drive car at the end, which just has been launched. Really how the organization is driven, how your product portfolio looks like, could be a very good dimension to differentiate also the ratings of the focus areas, so the granularity of the focus areas. And then, for example, an innovation should receive ideally a much higher rating in the sense of pricing power from the customer's point of view than if you talk about an old product which is about to be grandfathered.
If I make a comment, I believe, I mean, it's on one side making always this heat map, right, which is a formal process. But what is at least as important is to create this mentality of thinking and way of working. And then you once of a sudden have automatically that the things are getting updated. So if the new product is coming there, then people are clear on what does it mean for the pricing power, and the price setting based on the data which are available will be more right or better than if it would be not there. So it's not only always doing or redoing every 3 months the heat map, it's also about bringing in this into the genes of the organization and just have always at this look, what is the value? What is the value for the customer? What is the power I have because of that? And how can I close the gap between my pricing and this value?
It seems like a really pragmatic approach to price management. Would you suggest that a company start off with applying this, let's say, on a market level? Let's say, okay, let's focus on 2 or 3 countries and get them to do this kind of workshop simultaneously, or would you do it? How would you envision kind of applying it for a company as a start point, like a kind of a lean approach into it?
Yeah, Patrick and me, we are working on one case. It's a larger multi-billion company. And I mean, at the end, they want to start with the pilot, right? They will understand, is it working for them? And that's always the right way to do. And you need to have the buy-in. One of the most important success factors for pricing is that you have the buy-in, the support, or even the drive from the top management. And that's how it's happening a lot. The CEO walks in and says something has to happen on price management, do it and report when you have done it. But you need to have the buy-in from the organization. So it's good to start where you have this buy-in. And the reality is, I know it from an organization with a lot of business units and a lot of regions in a lot of different product applications. It's not everywhere the same. So do it where there is a need and the preparedness to say, yeah, we have to do something, and make the pilot a success. And if the pilot is a success, and we know it will be a success because it will drive profit, then everybody else will follow. So AJ, I'm not sure if this is the answer you wanted to hear. It goes back a little bit to Patrick's consultant's statement. It all depends. But especially in the early phase, start where you believe it can be a success, where the need is there, and where you have the buy-in from the management.
Yeah. It seems pragmatic to have a client run a pilot, and their own use case will speak volumes, and will get more, let's say, excitement through the results that it generates. Yeah,
absolutely.
Wonderful. All right, listen, Patrick, Kasim, Rawaf, Luana, I just want to see if you have any questions that you'd like to ask.
I have one. This is Rawaf Al-Ghanmi from Saudi Arabia. Actually, I'm very enjoying this sessions webinar with you. Thank you for everything, valuable information and expertise. Actually, what I'm facing in currently in the marketing for pricing strategies. When you build the pricing strategies, it will be different from quarter to quarter. Depend on the market situations, currency fluctuation, and all these things. And it will be hard to build the long-term strategy with the commitment on that time. So we are working on same things to be built dynamic prices on strategies. It will be best things, but one of them is digitalize the pricing. So the digital pricing will be different from what we can do through B2B, because if you're going for digital things, this will be easy and competitive more to the customer. So what is the best practice? So because the market is changing and everything is changed based on that, and always, as you're aware, the pricing is the weaknesses in the all equivalent of this journey, from costing, from supply and demand, from everything. Is that the weakness thing is price? How we can find the best way for pricing strategy for long term, not from the period of the year.
Yeah, I think good that you mention it. Let me take that question, and thanks for being here. It's really good to have that differentiation and to really look at things more from what you mentioned, the long-term perspective. That is really about the segments you want to serve, where you want to grow, to have a good idea of where you position yourselves versus the competition. And ideally, from that longer term view, you also derive some guardrails which will support your day-to-day dynamic pricing. For example, some checks you could apply where you say, strategically, we want to be present in a certain market segment. If we have competitive data, we would like to be X% more expensive. We would like to enable a certain segment to grow, where you may be more generous on volume discounts, or where you establish some rebates. That's really the first iteration to get the clarity on the strategic view. Because I've seen some organizations also fail being too reliant on digital pricing, without really making their minds up in what also the market can bear. Because digital pricing in B2B can be particularly tricky, depending on how your customers are buying, how they are used, and how they are accepting price changes. Because digital pricing comes from the consumer world, from the online, really kind of the stock market environments, and not every B2B segment is like that. So consciously, that's also part of the strategy. Make a decision on how that dynamic will play out, and it could play out differently in the back end, where you constantly check all those changes in supply and costs, for example, but then also consciously have certain periods where you change prices in one or the other direction. So really be mindful of what triggers a price change, and how you then implement the price change. That's part of strategy.
And I think, if I may build on this, so strategic pricing is always combined with more, right? I mean, and then you once of a sudden, if you talk about strategic pricing, you involve the entire organization. Because for strategic pricing, it's not just a commercial decision. It's not just this is not the right price in this environment or in this phase. It's really where you want to go with the company. And that's why our second phase is so important. At the end, and AJ, I think and Vimal as well, you are the biggest promoter for that. It's all about the value you are creating. And based on the value you are creating, you can set your price. And you have to make sure that you understand what is the value, and that there is really, and Patrick said it, there is a clear match between the value you have and the price you are setting. That's the important one. And that's why it's so important to not say, well, it's just a pricing thing. If you talk about strategic pricing, it goes towards, do I have the right product range? Do I need to add products? Do I need to renew products? Can I add service components into this? Can I improve my supply chain, which is so short, better than every other competitor, and the customer cannot walk away from me because he's getting the product from one day to the other? These are all the things which you have to consider, and then it goes broad But that's when the real power of pricing is really starting, when you say, I connect it with the overall strategy where I want to go with a company. I know it's a little bit generic, but from my experience, it's the truth.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to, I understand a bit of the business that that Ravaf comes from, cargo, right, the cargo business, right, as an airline. And it's a pretty cutthroat business with low margins, right? But I just wanted to suggest one element which is not normally considered, which is perception of value. Your shippers and your cargo agents, there's certain things that are taken for granted, obviously, which is on time, safe, and so on and so forth, space and all of that. But there's a perception of value that is really important. And so sometimes when you do your pricing, it's worthwhile going to market to understand what are your different segments of shippers actually perceiving as real value. On time is hygiene now. Everybody does on time, right? So maybe you want to find some other element in your service, in your cargo transportation service, that gives the perception of a higher value. And sometimes that is as simple as just, being able to update you, having somebody to be able to call you, to give you updates. That's high value perceived, even if it's low cost, right? And that could be a differentiating factor if you raise your prices, for example. So just some thoughts there.
I'm okay. Thank you for sharing the information. It's really appreciated. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Thank you, Kassim and Rav. Well, if you would like to connect, we have also Dominik and Patrick's LinkedIn there. Feel free to connect with them and follow up if you have any other questions. I think that then brings us to the end. Dominik, Patrick, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise today. This is recorded, and I know a lot of people in my network that's interested in watching this. Desmond obviously dropped off. It was getting late for him in Asia, but hopefully we can have another session of this for those based in Asia and Australia, New Zealand, and have another session maybe in the next months ahead. So thank you very much.